Welcome back to Mad Medicine. In this lecture, we're going to be discussing hemoglobin C disease. If you guys don't know, on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Mad Medicine, you can find all of our HemOnc study guide step 1 videos in a convenient playlist, so go check it out. And while you're there, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate you guys' support. We post brand new videos every single day for step 1, so we'd really like it if you guys would show us some love. And with that being said, let's talk about normocytic anemia. Normocytic anemia is a type of anemia based off of the size of the red blood cell, and it is going to be classified by an MCV, mean corpuscular volume, that is going to be 80 to 100, aka a normal red blood cell size. Now, when it comes down to normocytic anemias, you can subdivide these based off of hemolysis. You can have non-hemolytic anemia that is normocytic, and you can have hemolytic anemia. And the hemolytic anemias can be subdivided based off of intrinsic and extrinsic causes of hemolysis. Now, when it comes to hemolytic anemias, the intrinsic causes occur due to problems within the cell. These can be issues with the membranes, and we've discussed all of these already in our previous videos. This can be due to enzyme deficiencies. We've already discussed all of these in the previous videos. You can check them out on the playlist. And they can be due to hemoglobinopathies like hemoglobin C disease, and that's what we're going to be discussing today. Now, this can also be due to extrinsic causes of hemolysis due to problems outside of the cell, like autoimmune issues with blood vessels that are small or large, and you can have infections that can lead to extrinsic causes of hemolysis. One thing to understand when it comes to hemolytic anemias is that your body is going to be upregulating the production of red blood cells because you are losing red blood cells, and in that upregulation of red blood cell production, you are going to release immature red blood cells called reticulocytes, and your reticulocyte count is going to be greater than 2%. Normally, it is going to be 1 to 2%, but in this case, it is going to be high. And in normocytic anemias, you're going to have a normal reticulocyte count. In normocytic non-hemolytic anemias, you're going to have a normal reticulocyte count, and in hemolytic anemias, you're going to have an elevated reticulocyte count. So with that being said, let's talk about our first of the two hemoglobinopathies you definitely need to know, and this is going to be hemoglobin C disease, HbC disease. This is an autosomal recessive, very important, autosomal recessive mutation in the beta globin gene of hemoglobin. And what ends up happening is that you're going to have a single amino acid change, and that is going to lead to glutamic acid being converted into lysine. So instead of the gene or the codon that's going to code for glutamic acid, you're going to have lysine. Now remember, in hemoglobin S or sickle cell anemia, you're going to have a change of glutamic acid to valine. So in both of the hemoglobinopathies we're going to talk about in when it comes to hemolytic normocytic anemias, you are going to have glutamic acid, okay? Glutamic acid, let's write this down, on both of them. Glutamic acid, that isn't going to change. If it goes to lysine, you are going to have HbC. And if it goes to valine, you are going to have HB, hemoglobin S, sickle cell hemoglobin S, or sickled hemoglobin. The way I always remembered it is glutamic acid is either going to go to lysine or valine, and if it goes to lysine, because L comes earlier in the alphabet, you're going to have hemoglobin C, which comes before S, and because V comes second after L, you're going to have hemoglobin S with valine. That was always a little trick I used. Hopefully it's helpful for you guys, but who knows. Now this is this is less common. This is less common than sickle cell disease, or you're going to have less HbC than you would HbS in general. And it can be inherited with sickle cell disease because they occur at the same location, and you can have HbSC as well. This is going to be milder than sickle cell disease. Now HbC is a structural variant of hemoglobin A. Now remember, go back to our hemoglobin lectures and our lectures about red blood cells and microcytic anemias. You have several different types of hemoglobin. You have hemoglobin A1, you have hemoglobin A2, and this is going to be with 2 alpha chains, 2 beta chains, and hemoglobin A2 is going to be with 2 alpha chains, 2 delta chains. Hemoglobin F is going to be the fetal hemoglobin with 2 alpha chains and 2 gamma chains. And then in alpha thalassemias, you can have hemoglobin H, where you have just beta production. Okay, remember this is 3 alpha chain gene deletions. And in 4 alpha chain hemoglobin deletions, you can have hemoglobin BARTs, which is going to be 4 gamma chains. Sorry, I should have wrote 4 there instead of this. Anyways, you can have 4 gamma chains. This is going to be a quadruple deletion of the alpha globin chain. And in this case, hemoglobin S is going to be a structural variant of adult hemoglobin. Now, epidemiology-wise, this is more common in Africa, Southern Europe, and South America and Central America, not really in America itself. And it's really interesting because in all of these countries, you have higher incidences of malaria, and therefore we believe this may be potentially protective against malaria. Okay, this is very important. This is something you should know. Now, when it comes to step 1, when it comes to the vignettes, most likely it's going to be someone who has immigrated to the United States who's presenting with the symptoms we're going to be discussing later on. Now, there are also variants of hemoglobin C disease that you should be aware of. Number 1, you have hemoglobin trait, HbC. In this case, one gene is mutated, and then you have one normal beta globin gene that occurs in these patients. This is a very mild disease. It is milder than the other form. And in this disease, you're going to see mild extravascular hemolysis, and you're not going to really have clinical symptoms, realistically. You may see mild splenomegaly, hepatosplenomegaly, if anything, but patients are going to be perfectly fine. Their oxygen content and their oxygen delivery function is still going to be working. Then you have hemoglobin C disease, HbC, and with both beta globin genes are going to have the glutamic acid to lysine mutation. In this case, you're going to have the more moderate disease presentation with moderate extravascular hemolysis, more so a hepatosplenomegaly than in the hemoglobin C trait. And you're going to see hemolytic anemia. You're going to see splenomegaly, like we said, as well as pigmented gallstone due to the extravascular hemolysis. So when it comes to pathogenesis, hemoglobin C is going to be less soluble and it's going to crystallize in the serum. Now, because it's going to crystallize, you have increased cellular rigidity. And what did we always say happens with increased cellular rigidity? Well, when the red blood cell goes to the spleen, it is going to go through something called the red pulp. And in the red pulp, there are the cords of Billroth, and I'm just simplifying that here. And if the red blood cell is not able to deform to pass through the cords of Billroth, it will get stuck and it will get degraded, it will get destroyed by the splenic macrophages. Okay, that is what happens. Because you have increased rigidity, the red blood cells in hemoglobin C disease are not going to be able to go through properly, and it's going to lead to destruction and extravascular hemolysis. Also, you're going to have increased blood viscosity because these red blood cells are not very pliable. They're very rigid. They're not going to be able to move and flow properly like they should in the blood. These red blood cells are also going to have shortened red blood cell survival time, and they can lead to occlusions in the blood due to the rigidity and the viscosity. Now, extravascular hemolysis is mainly going to occur in the spleen, like we have discussed before, and you're going to see splenomegaly as well. So then a classic presentation that you should know for the boards for step 1 is going to be a 28-year-old immigrant from Africa who presents with complaints of occasional fatigue. Now, he or she is not going to have any other symptoms, and they're going to deny unexpected weight loss or night sweats. Now, usually when I think Africa, I think of malaria. That's my first go-to thought. And, that's because I used to work at a malaria research lab. But in this case, because they don't have any other symptoms, they don't have unexpected weight loss or night sweats, I stopped thinking about malaria in this classic presentation. When you do a physical exam, you're not going to see any lymphadenopathy, mild splenomegaly, or conjunctival pallor, but you are going to see an increase in the MCHC with intracellular crystals seen on blood smear. Very, very important. Intracellular crystals. Remember, hemoglobin C has the ability to crystallize in the serum, and that is the key giveaway. Okay, this is key giveaway. HY. High yield, right? AF. What does AF stand for, guys? Very high yield. It stands for as fuck. So this is high yield as fuck. Make sure you remember the intracellular crystals being seen on the red blood smear. the blood smear in general. Sorry, not red blood, it's just blood smear. So when it comes to labs and diagnoses, you want to look at the hemoglobin and you want to do a hemoglobin electrophoresis. In this case, you're gonna see hemoglobin C with absent hemoglobin A. So because you have decreased in hemoglobin A, what is gonna go up? Hemoglobin F. There you go. You're gonna see an increase in hemoglobin F concentration than normal. You're also gonna see an increase in MCHC. This can be noted. Now, in the peripheral blood smear, you're going to see hemoglobin C crystals. That's very important. So this is what a hemoglobin C crystal looks like right here, right? As you can see, this is not like a normal hemoglobin. This is a very, very dense red blood cell, and it is because hemoglobin has crystallized inside. That is a hemoglobin C crystal that occurs. You will also see target cells in this case, and this is what a target cell looks like. You can see in these red blood cells in the middle, there is a darkening where the central pallor should be, and it makes it look like a target symbol. This is associated with hemoglobin C disease, very, very important, and probably the most high yield thing you should know with target cells for step 1, but also can be associated with asplenia, liver disease, thalassemias, iron deficiency anemia, and sickle cell disease. So there are several associations you should be aware of, but for now we're discussing HbC, so that's what we're talking about in the context. Now, when it comes to the markers of hemolysis in these patients, because it is extravascular, you're not really going to see a decrease in haptoglobin or an increase in the serum hemoglobin concentration, because serum hemoglobin is not being lysed into the blood. But you are going to see increase in LDH. You're going to see an increase in reticulocyte count. Makes sense because this is a hemolytic normocytic anemia. So you're going to have an increase in reticulocyte count, which is going to be greater than 2%. And you're going to see an indirect bilirubinemia. When it comes to treatment, mainly it is supportive care and folic acid supplementation. That is mainly what you are going to do. So let's just quickly recap. In this case, you're going to have a glutamic acid mutation to either valine or lysine. Which one is it, guys? Say it quickly. Good, you got it right. It is lysine. Okay, glutamic acid to lysine. Remember, glutamic acid to valine is sickle cell anemia. In HbC, you have glutamic acid to valine. Boom. So when you have glutamic acid to valine, you're going to have hemoglobin C. And hemoglobin C is it has a high affinity of crystallizing in the serum. So when you look under the red blood cell, you're going to under the microscope, you're going to see crystallized hemoglobin C molecules, and we've discussed that. And you will also see target cells in this case, and treatment is mainly supportive care. What you really need to know about this disease is that mainly it occurs in locations where malaria is also present, and this may have protective properties for patients from getting infected with malaria. And with that being said, we have covered majority of the things that you need to know for HbC disease. Remember, this is a cause of hemolytic normocytic anemia where the MCV is going to be normal. That being said, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. We post brand new Step 1 content every single day. Follow us on Instagram at mad.medicine and on Twitter at It's Mad Medicine. And you can listen to these lectures on your favorite podcast service provider for free. Just search Mad Medicine and we will pop up.